Good afternoon, everyone. I'm glad everybody is so happy. We're happy to be here. This is our 13th annual Global Partnerships Luncheon. So lucky 13, world of opportunity. We are the luncheon co-chairs this year, Tom Waldron and myself, Maggie Walker, and we are, of course, delighted to have all of you here today. It is a massive and wonderful crowd, so give yourselves a round of applause. So we have just a couple of things we want to say, and we want to say, first of all, we've got a whole bunch of new people in the room, and if you're a new person to Global Partnership, would you raise your hand and wave it? I just would love to see. We are very happy to have you, and I think you should be prepared to be blown away, so look forward to that. We've lost a very special friend this week, and Tom is going to tell you a little bit about that and just give her a tribute. Thank you.
Thank you, and welcome everybody, and great to see so many friends from Global Partnerships and new people that are joining us today. I do want to say a few words about a gem, an emerald of a person that we've known for some time at Global, Ginny Meisenbach, who we did lose this last week. And Ginny and I worked together on the board. When I first joined the board, she was on the board from 2005 to 2009. She actually hosted this luncheon in 2006 and has been a great advocate and supporter of Global Partnerships. Just a note on Ginny, and there's a picture of her up on the screen, and that smile really represents the connection that you make with Ginny when you meet her. And her work in the community, both domestically in our community and abroad, is just remarkable. Too long a list to talk about today, but she, unlike many people that try and do the work, she never shined the light on herself. She threw a very, very bright light on trafficking, human trafficking, our girls and boys being trafficked into prostitution. She threw a bright light on young girls struggling for an education in Rwanda. At Global Partnerships, she threw an extremely beacon of light on women and girls coming out of poverty into economic empowerment and better health. Just to name a few things that she was involved in, her and her husband, John, gave of their time and their treasure and their energy. So we're dedicating, Maggie and I are dedicating this luncheon to Ginny, and a life extremely well lived, fortified by love and service. So we'd like all of you, instead of a moment of silence, to give her the round of applause that she deserves for her work in the community. Thank you. Now I'm going to tear up, but thank you so much for that. And Maggie's right. We have a powerhouse program today. I feel like the host of Saturday Night Live. We have a great night, and looking forward to having you all hear about the great work of GP. Thank you.
So don't forget, and Margaret.
You go.
So let's get Margaret Carlson, our MC, to come up to the stage. Margaret, our long time, and there you are.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Appreciate it. Oh, yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. I am Margaret Larson, and I am very happy to welcome you to the Lucky 13th Annual Luncheon. We've been the business of hope. We are now the world of opportunity, and both of those names really suggest what it is that we're doing. A moment also just to mention, Jenny was a great role model to me when I served on the board at Global Partnerships, and I know that she would be incredibly pleased, as we all are, to see so many new people here, because we need your ideas and your energy to go along with the history and the learning that has taken place in this organization to carry us to new heights. Over the years at this luncheon, we've met GP clients and partners who've shared very profound and touching stories. One of the ones that stands out in my mind was the woman who took her loan to make, by day, a food kiosk, by night, a disco bar. And she did a wonderful job with it, apparently, and lifted her family out of poverty for generations to come. Today, 21 years later, I'm proud to say that Global Partnerships has touched more than 3.3 million lives. That's what you have done together, and we are not done yet. Every person in this room plays a very important role, and we know that it's your personal and financial commitment that allows this work to create that change. Over the next hour, you're going to share in Global Partnerships' most recent work and the future direction. I know that you'll be excited about the program. There's so much new to talk about. Well, I want to take a few moments to acknowledge our sponsors, and these include, and if you wouldn't mind holding your applause to the end, our Catalyst sponsors, Coastal Transportation and Matthew G. Norton Company. Our Innovate sponsors, Expeditors International, JP Morgan Chase & Company, McKinstry, Waldron. Changing pages now. Aegis Living, BECU, Charlie's Produce, Cornerstone Advisors, Microsoft, Saltchuk, Seattle University, and Starbucks, and an in-kind sponsor, Grayling. Please join me in thanking all of these organizations, people, and businesses. And I know it's tough to stand up when you're in the middle of lunch, so if you are a table captain, a table sponsor, a corporate sponsor, or a volunteer, would you please raise your hand so we can acknowledge you with a round of applause. We appreciate you very much. Let's extend a special thanks to this year's luncheon co-chairs Tom Waldron and Mackie Walker, and our fabulous steering committee and volunteer committee for today's festivities. Thank you for bringing us together. Please acknowledge them with a round of applause as well. And one final thank you also to the people, the wait staff and kitchen staff today who put together this gorgeous luncheon and are making this event so pleasant and this lunch so delicious. Thank them as well. Now, just a few words about the mission for Global Partnership. Obviously, we are intending to expand opportunity for people living in poverty in Latin America, in the Caribbean, and Africa. GP invests capital in local partners that provide products and services to poor families, like access to credit, plus education, health services, training, and connection to markets, to empower people who are living in poverty to create better lives for themselves and for their future generations. Women entrepreneurs receive education combined with access to affordable credit so that they can start and build strong businesses and save money for their families' futures. Farmers earn a better and more stable income and learn also how to sustainably maintain and improve their harvest yields. And families, particularly women, receive access to essential medicine and health services, including education and screenings for treatable conditions, including diabetes, hypertension, and cervical cancer, which is a great threat in the developing world. And solar technology is a safe and affordable lighting alternative that gives families the opportunities to extend their workday, kids to study at night, to save money on kerosene, to not live in such a dangerous household that uses such things for energy. And as you enjoy your delicious lunch, we want to share with you a little bit more about that part of the story of Anna. Anna has received loans from GP to partner to grow her business. Her increased income means a much better future for herself and her son Abner. They're getting closer to their dream of having Anna return to school and become a registered nurse. Please enjoy their story and your lunch, and we'll be back in just a few minutes with GP's CEO and President, Rick Beckett. Thank you.
Mi nombre es Abner Omar Dugan Aguilar. Mi edad es de 15 años. Yo describiría a mi mamá como una gran persona, una trabajadora, una luchadora por mí, que supo defenderme por cualquier enfermedad. Ella supo cuidarme de mí, no tuvo ningún compromiso por cuidarme. Mi mamá se dedica a vender atol, o sea, arroz en leche y de arroz en chocolate. Ella vende hamburguesas y tostadas. Ella, más que todo, lo que hace en la venta, ella maneja todo el dinero. O sea, no deja que nadie toque el dinero, más que solo ella. Pues de ella me siento bien, orgulloso de ella. Pues porque como ella, no creo que haya alguien igual. Estoy estudiando ahora tercero básico y en mi futuro quisiera estudiar para guioturismo. Quiero ser un ejemplo de mi mamá y quiero que ella se sienta orgullosa de mí como yo me siento de ella.
Are you enjoying lunch? It was unusually delicious. And a very moving video. We're very grateful for that. And as a mom myself, I love seeing a son who wants his mom to be proud of him the way he is of her. There are a couple of people that we want to celebrate today. Those were two of them in the video. And now I'm pleased to introduce you to another very special person, Global Partnerships CEO, Rick Beckett. Rick, come on up.
Exactly. This is fantastic.
Good to see you.
Thank you. Well, let me also welcome you to the 13th annual luncheon. It's for all of you who have been here with us in previous years. We are grateful for your continued engagement and with us and support of us. And my team tells me we have something like 230 people in the room today that are new to Global Partnerships, and we are delighted that you're here. Thank you very much. I hope and trust that today you'll hear about some things that inspire you to, in the ways that we can really make a difference in the lives of people living in poverty. And I look forward to sharing some of those with you. So what I thought I would do today, given kind of the mixed crowd, is spend a little bit of time talking about what GP does, how we do what we do, and why we think it can really make a difference in people's lives. And then I want to turn our attention to the future, to share with you three in particular kind of emerging things that we think have the potential to make a huge difference in the lives of millions of people in the coming years. So let me begin at the beginning, which is what we're doing today. You can see on the slide there with the three circles, these are the four impact areas that Margaret, in her New Day speed talk, kind of walked you through. So let me just spend a little bit of time talking a little bit in more depth about each. So the first area that we invest in is something called micro-entrepreneurship. That's all about making small loans combined with business education available to mostly women so they can start and grow small businesses. This empowers these micro-entrepreneurs to begin to earn a little bit of income, to create some savings and begin to provide for their families. And those enterprises range from things like sewing businesses to baking businesses to small pulperias, little stores, selling vegetables, basic economic opportunity for mostly women and their families living in poverty. One of the things that we've learned over the years, and others have as well, is if you care about global development, there are few things that you can do that are more powerful than getting economic resources into the hands of women, and this is the initiative that we have that does just that. So the second for us is rural livelihoods. This is all about small lot farmers. So if you're a farmer, one of the things we know that if you get access to credit, so you can buy things like seed and fertilizer, and then you receive education about how to grow your crops, how to diversify your crops, how to improve your yields, and then you have access to markets where you can sell your produce at a fair price rather than being pressed by lack of resources into selling to some local intermediary that buys it for next to nothing. So if you have those three things, credit for the materials, technical assistance, and access to markets, you can increase your incomes. And our rural livelihoods work is essentially all about empowering small lot farmers in those ways. The third area that we focus on is health. One of the great challenges in global development is if you have things that work, particularly in the area of health, like vaccines that can prevent disease, or information about how diet can reduce the risk of diabetes, or an ultra-affordable diagnostic test for cervical cancer. Those are great technologies, but they don't make a difference if you can't figure out how to actually get them to the people living in poverty. So the great challenge is, how do you bridge the last mile? And what we found with microfinance is that it's already built a lot of the distribution system to do that. Microfinance today reaches about 200 million clients worldwide, touching the lives of about 1 billion people. And in doing that, they've built a lot of tiny little small bank branches, and importantly, in many cases, something called group lending or village banks, where groups of typically women gather every 2 weeks or once a month to repay their loans. Well, there's other things you can do while you're there. And some of the most exciting work we've seen here, done by not only our partner ProMujer, who's represented by Rosario Perez here today, but others, is addressing cervical cancer, where you can use the village bank to educate women about the risk of cervical cancer, either at the village bank or at the branch bank, provide free testing and screening, and then help those women follow up to receive the care that they need. So you've got a situation where you can leverage this distribution system, not just to bring economic opportunity, but bring the opportunity for better health to millions of people around the world. And finally, our fourth area is solar technologies. You'll hear a lot more about this later today. This is all about helping families who burn dirty, expensive, unsafe kerosene shift to clean, renewable solar light. There are 1.3 billion people on the planet that have no access to electricity, and this is one of the most promising technologies we've seen, which we think that can make a difference in those lives. One of the things we learned from our work in microfinance over the years is that markets have the potential to reach millions. As I mentioned, microfinance now serves about 200 million clients, touching the lives of 1 billion people globally. We think solar technologies, 10 years from now, will achieve similar scale. That what we'll be talking about is how hundreds of millions of people have been able to shift from dirty fuel to clean light. So that's a little bit about what we're doing today. The way we work, all of our work, happens through partners. We call them social enterprises. These may be microfinance institutions that began by making small loans to very poor people, and then over time learned how to combine that with things like business education. Sometimes those partners are cooperatives. For those of you who were here last year, you met Frank and heard him talk about what it is to lead a coffee cooperative with 1,000 or 2,000 small lot farmers, and those are the types of social enterprises that are involved in the rural livelihoods work. Sometimes our partner is a social business, like Greenlight Planet, that you'll hear from later today, which is actually bringing products directly to the lives of people living in poverty. So regardless of what type they are, they have two things in common. They're working in developing countries to bring these products and services to the people we're here to serve, and they have a sustainable market-based way of doing that, which creates the opportunity to reach thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people. So all of our work happens through those partners. We have 50 partners now throughout 12 countries in Latin America and the Caribbean, and soon in 4 countries, Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, and Rwanda in East Africa. So when we find these partners, we've looked around the world and at more than 1,000 and have focused in on partners that we think do exceptionally high impact work in a sustainable and high integrity way. Then we support them, and we support them with funds so they can sustain and grow their work, and we support them with know-how about how to deepen their impact or make their business model more sustainable. And it's this path that we're on, a path of partnership, a path of focusing on what really makes a difference in people's lives, and aspiring not to reach a few, but to reach millions of people, is the essence of our approach and the essence of our work. So let me shift from what we're doing today, if I could, to some of the things that I'm most excited about for the future. Our team spends a lot of time and energy looking around the world for the next opportunities. What are the next things that can be delivered to people living in poverty that can really empower them to improve their lives? And which of those can be done in a sustainable way that can reach millions of people? And there are 3 in particular that I'm quite excited about, I'd love to share with you today. The first, let me go back to our work in rural livelihoods. There are roughly 500 million families, so 2.5 billion people, about a third of humanity, that make their living in some form of agriculture. Sometimes those folks are growing subsistence crops, beans, rice, corn, maize. Sometimes they're growing cash crops like coffee or cacao. Regardless, what we know is that the kinds of services that I described earlier, credit and technical assistance and market access, help them to increase their yields, diversify their crops, and improve their incomes. Now the challenge is that most of them don't have access to those services. The most effective social enterprises so far that bring these services to poor farmers are cooperatives. They usually serve 500 or 1,000 or perhaps 2,000 people at a time. And they have a lot of trouble growing. They just aren't designed to grow. And as a result, most of those 500 million families don't have access to these services. What we're beginning to see, and I'll share an example with you from Paraguay in a moment, is a new form of social business that's emerging. It's much less widely developed than cooperatives are. We call them outgrowers. And we think these have the potential to reach 10 or 20 times as many small lot farmers with these essential services. So let me show you what that looks like. This is an example in Paraguay. What the outgrower does is it develops markets internationally typically. And so in this case, it's for sesame and chia in Asia, North America, and Europe. And they develop those markets for high-margin agricultural products. Then what they do is they work with thousands and thousands of small lot farmers. So in Paraguay, farmers typically are growing beans and corn, which are good subsistence crops. And there are two growing cycles in Paraguay. And so what the outgrower does is work with the farmers to stay with their existing beans and corn for one cycle and then rotate in chia and sesame for the other. Now what that does for the farmer is it means they have a much more sustainable crop approach because you're rotating crops. The margins on chia and sesame are many times higher than they are on beans and corn. And so you've got an opportunity to help those farmers have a more sustainable farming practice and to increase their incomes. In one of our pilot investments in Paraguay, the partner that we're working with there started with 24,000, when we first started looking with them, 24,000 farmers. They're now at 36,000 farmers, and they're looking to grow at 70% in the next 12 months. So we think outgrowers are an opportunity to bring what we know works with farmers to tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of small lot farmers around the world, and we're excited about its potential not only in Latin America, but throughout Africa, where farming is even more prevalent and the depth of poverty is even more severe. So that's about outgrowers and small lot farmers. Let me now speak for a minute about cooking. So there are 3 billion people in the world that use either wood or charcoal as the fuel for their cooking. And let me show you a little bit about what that looks like. This is an image of a traditional charcoal stove. So here's the problem. First of all, from an environmental point of view, you're contributing to deforestation and carbon emissions. From a household point of view, you've got huge health effects. So the WHO, in a recent study, estimates that there are almost 700,000 people will die in Africa alone from smoke and indoor pollution-related diseases in the next year, because the environment that they're operating in looks like this. To make matters worse, in urban environments, the people living in poverty are spending hundreds of dollars a year on fuel. They have to buy the charcoal. So you've got a situation where impoverished families are having to spend money they don't have to buy fuel that, when they burn it, compromises their family health and ruins the planet. And that obviously is something we've got to do something about. So what we're encouraged by is the development of a new generation of cook stoves, of efficient cook stoves. In fact, Peter Scott from Bern, one of a very interesting social enterprises in the room today. This is one of Bern's stoves. And what these are designed to do is to help families living in poverty use that fuel, but they burn much more efficiently, they burn much more cleanly, they reduce the amount of fuel the family needs to use by more than half, reduces the smoke and particulate by more than half. And so what you have is an opportunity to save those families money, several $100s a year for a $30 stove. and improve the health conditions in the house and make progress on some of these environmental issues. We're excited about the potential there as we're excited about solar lights. Final example I'd like to share with you is about something as basic as sanitation. There are 2.5 billion people on the planet who lack access to basic sanitation, and another estimated 1.6 billion people that are affected by it because the waste flows into the water, creates dirty water, and creates huge health issues. The UN estimates that 1.5 million children will die of sanitation-related diseases in the coming year. So let me show you what it looks like. This is an image from Nairobi, the slums outside of Nairobi. The kind of facilities that people have to use, you can see depicted on the left. The way the waste is treated, you can see depicted on the right. And so it's no wonder that we've got a crisis of human dignity and a whole series of public health issues. So what I'd like to share with you now is what one emerging social enterprise is doing in Nairobi to do something about it, and share a little bit about what that looks like. So this is a social enterprise that's saying we're going to take a business model and try to apply it to this problem. So what they do is they have developed, and you can see it there, the blue image on the left side of the screen. They've created essentially decent sanitation, and they've created a business in a box. So they have created this with all of the supplies that you need to keep that facility clean and to have people be able to wash their hands. They've introduced it as a business in a box. They've now got more than 500 of these deployed in the slums in Nairobi, and they've proven two things. First of all, people that are living there will pay a couple of shillings to use it, to have access to basic sanitation. And micro-entrepreneurs, it's a valuable job-creating micro-enterprise for the people who then make it available. What they then do to take on the next part of the problem is they have sanitary practices for what they do with the waste. So they take it to a processing facility, you can see it depicted here, and they turn it into valuable byproducts. A little bit of biogas, the most important one is organic fertilizer. And then they sell that fertilizer to enterprises, agriculture enterprises right there in Kenya. You can see that depicted here. So what you've got is an emerging business model taking on one of the world's great challenges in health and human dignity, sanitation, which is creating jobs and the solutions in the slums, and then creating revenue streams on both ends. They are tracking beautifully to some of their milestones, and we think they will become a sustainable social enterprise and maybe a prototype for sanitation in other parts of the world. So these are the kinds of things. Outgrowers working with small lot farmers, innovations around efficient cook stoves that save families money and improve health conditions, social enterprises that take on problems like sanitation. These are the types of things we need to see to create the kind of future we want to see. These are the types of things that our team is looking for around the world, and I'm grateful for all that you do to make that work possible. My hope is that in luncheons like this in coming years, we'll be standing up here and talking to you about how these types of approaches are making a difference in the lives of millions of people living in poverty. So with that, it's my pleasure to introduce you to our guest speaker for today. One of our 50 partners is Greenlight Planet. They are doing some terrific work, really exciting work in the area of making solar lights available to people living in poverty. Desh Malik is the Vice President of Business Development for Greenlight Planet, and he's here to talk to you a little bit more about that. So please join me in welcoming Desh to the podium.
Great job.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Rick, for the kind introduction. Thank you, Global Partnerships, for inviting Greenlight Planet here today to speak about solar energy. But most importantly, thank you all for being here, taking time out of your busy schedules to hear about the work that we're doing and the work that Global Partnership is helping us do. So I've been asked to talk about solar energy in a city where the sun never shines, and maybe the audience hasn't seen the sun in months. So we may have to imagine a little bit, a few times. So I'd like to start off sharing the story about my company. So Greenlight Planet is on a mission to eradicate kerosene usage across the world. The lights that are on your table, we're the manufacturers of Sun King solar lights. We were founded, the idea was conceived about in 2005 when a group of college students, our co-founders, were on a trip to a very remote village in eastern India with Engineers Without Borders. Their task was to solve the energy problem in these rural villages as you see on the screen. These villages are people live in mud huts, mud floors, no running water, and most importantly, no electricity. So what the team decided was that they would, putting on their Western hats, that they would create a biofuel-operated generator to help with the spice grind, to run the spice grinder and the corn husker. So they did it. They created this generator. They hooked it up. Everything was great. They patted themselves on the back and went back to school. A year later, they returned, and the spice grinder was rusted. So was the corn husker, but the generator was being used daily. What for, you may ask? For light. So they sat back for a second and thought, maybe we should have asked them what the problem was before telling them. And they realized that light is almost a basic necessity to get things done when the sun goes down. So that's where the idea of Sun King was born. Sorry about this. Everything's coming from the heart, but I had to write some stuff down. Like I mentioned, our global mission is to eradicate kerosene usage and improve lives by bringing clean, sustainable, renewable energy to the parts of the world that need it most. So our aim is to light up Asia, Africa, and Latin America with solar technology and the promise of the future. Last week, actually, we were invited to the White House to commit to additional Millennium Development Goals. And what Greenlight Planet committed to was developing and creating and distributing the least expensive solar light that costs actually under $8. It's called the Sun King Pico, and I'll pass this around a little later, but it's just a smaller version of what's on the table in front of you. We also committed to providing the least expensive home system that will power small cottage industries and businesses anywhere in the world. Last is we committed to offering pay-as-you-go technologies in all of our products by mid-2016. So all of this work that we're doing is to help the 1.3 billion people in the world that have no access to electricity. Rick had mentioned that number, but I'd like for everyone just to let it sit in. It's 1.3 billion people. Never turn on a light bulb, no access to electricity. What they do rely on is dirty, alternative forms of energy. Essentially, this on the screen is a kerosene lantern. Kerosene emits really poor dim light, basically a candle, toxic fumes and smoke, and the children are breathing it daily, the women and children, and the husbands as well. And it affects the children the most with upper respiratory diseases. So it's a tragedy, and it can be fixed. And a 2009 Berkeley study found that a woman who lives in a home with kerosene lanterns is 9 times more likely to get TB versus a woman that lives next door that has electricity. A staggering number. A Journal of Energy study found that in Southern Africa, 1 out of 24 homes experiences catastrophic fires because these lanterns tip over. And of those, half involve fatalities. This can also be ended. On top of the in addition to the dangers, kerosene is quite expensive. Figures vary, but studies indicate that households spend anywhere from 10 to 30% of their monthly income on kerosene. That's massive. In some places, it's close to 50% in families that are living off of less than $2 a day. And typically, it's the women who have to walk miles and miles to the nearest town to fetch the kerosene. So we have a better way. These lights in front of you cost anywhere from $8 to $30. On a one-day's charge, they last anywhere from 24 hours to 72 hours. And it's a huge cost savings, hundreds of dollars a year for every family. Now last month, Greenlight Planet we sold our 4 millionth light. And our calculations, thank you. And our calculations indicate that we've saved, or these formula lights have impacted 15 plus million households, saving these households over $245 million in energy costs. It's a staggering number. So now you might be asking, if the solution is there, and there's so many benefits to solar energy, let's just get into the hands of these 1.3 billion people. We're trying. There's some challenges. It's easier said than done. The obvious challenge is, how do we reach these remote parts of the world, the poorest parts of the world that have no roads and no infrastructure? And the other challenge is, how do you convince a community that for centuries has been living off of candles and kerosene to adopt this new technology? It could be, it's intimidating. And also, how does it work? Who's going to be around if something goes wrong? So what we do is we partner, we need to get local buy-in. That's the only way. So we partner with local agents, local distributors, and the way we get connected with these and also hire additional personnel is through support from global partnerships. So we are always grateful for the support of global partnerships, and also your support of them helps us. So thank you again. So let's imagine a little bit more here, because I'm sure most of you have never been to an off-grid community in a rural part of the world. So let's go on a little journey, all of us together. You can close your eyes if you want, but imagine that the sun is dipping below the horizon. There's a curtain of stars dropping from the heavens. Everything around you is getting dark, completely dark. I'll let your eyes adjust a little bit to your new village. Now I'd like you to find the luncheon program in front of you and read the first line. Can you do it? Not so easy. Now imagine walking through your house or your hut in the village. Try cooking. Try helping the kids with their homework. And try doing the most basic of human needs. Going outside to the communal bathroom and doing your business. In the pitch dark, where anybody or anything could be also lurking. There's a better way, and we don't have to imagine it. Table captains, can you please grab the lights and touch the orange button on the back 3 times to its highest level? Now, Sun King solar lights have been introduced to your village. Much easier to read the luncheon program, correct? Much easier to cook, help the kids out, work a little longer in the day, make a little extra money for your family and your community. I think everyone would agree? Yep. All right. So I'm going to tell you a story, real life story of a family community that Global Partnerships and Greenlight Planet is having a positive impact in Nicaragua. So let's imagine we're in Nicaragua now. Franco is an elementary school teacher. I believe he's on screen. In a town called Los Conchas in northern Nicaragua. It's on the border of Honduras. It's a stone's throw away from another town or a village called The Difficulties. Literally, it's called The Difficulties. If you call your town The Difficulties, it's not peaches and cream. It gives you a little indication of how, it's tough to get by in these rural parts of the world. And this town that Franco lives in is miles away from the closest other little town that actually has electricity. The way you get to his town is on a dirt road, meandering through beautiful countryside, but the point I'm trying to make is it's far away from everything. And so Franco's married. He and his wife have 2 kids. They're 11, 17. They go to school. He's a teacher. And he spends most of his day at school from morning till evening, till afternoon. And many times he has to stay till evening to help the parents plan other events for the school. By the time he gets home, it's dark. It's almost dark. It's twilight. But he's still expected to help the wife with the chores, with the farm, help his kids with their studies. And it's near impossible because they don't have solar lights. They don't have any lights. So I'm a recent dad, and when it's really hard for me to imagine that we work really hard. I always get home past when the sun goes down, and I can't play with my kids. I can't help them with their homework. It's tough to think about a life like that. So what Franco and his wife did, like any other dedicated parents, they figured out some options. How do we get some more done in the day? So he bought flashlights, he bought candles, he bought kerosene lanterns, which cost him about $20 to $25 a month, which is a significant portion of his income. But they still don't really do the trick. They're quite ineffective. They're dim, and again, we have the problem of the toxic fumes and the smoke. So Franco had learned through our contacts and our local distribution about solar lighting. So he decided that he wasn't going to wait any longer from what the government had been saying, you're going to get electricity soon, you're going to get electricity, which is common in almost every part of the world. You keep hearing about it. But instead of waiting, he bought himself a solar home system. So now, with this solar home system, as you can see on the screen, it's bright enough for his wife to do the cooking, for both of them to do the house chores, for the kids to study. It has multiple light fixtures, so you can run it to multiple different rooms or even outside for the bathroom or for the farm. They're not living in smoke anymore. And that's actually one thing the first thing that he had mentioned to us, that he's so grateful for the benefits that he doesn't have to breathe this toxic fume daily. And to give you guys an idea, because what we really wanted to do was bring a lantern in here, but the fire department apparently has rules. But imagine standing behind your car in the morning when it's idling. I mean, we can't bear it for a couple seconds, but imagine standing there for hours. That's basically what they live with daily. But now with solar technology, that's all, it's gone, it's erased. So the neighbors, they saw that he wasn't coughing anymore. He's like, what is this? He trained them, he showed it to them. He even bought extras from the local agent to distribute in his neighborhood. So now this local buy-in that I had mentioned earlier, that's really the biggest challenge that we've had anywhere in the world, especially Latin America and Africa as well. And so it lends to another neighbor of Franco's who wanted to adopt it and buy this technology. Her name is Francisca. We'd like to give you these real stories, so it's not just something on paper, something on a slide. So Francisca, she's 55, she has 2 daughters, they're in their 30s, she has a grandson who's 14. They go to work, he goes to school, she stays at home and takes care of the house. Lots of work to do. She wakes up very early, it's very dark, and she realized, I need a solar light. She paid Franco about $65 for it. And that number is a little misleading because our lights are actually $30, and we try to keep that price down, but depending on tariffs and distributors, sometimes it gets a little higher. However, even though it was $65 for her, she ended up saving about $7 to $8 a month on her energy costs, and it paid for the investment within a few months. Within a few months, you paid for it, and now you get to enjoy this solar, clean, smoke-free lifestyle for a minimum of 5 years. And that minimum is because our battery life, we have a lithium ferrophosphate battery. We guarantee it lasts at least 5 years. It definitely lasts more than that. So she doesn't have to run down the road to get kerosene. She gets to enjoy this for 5 years, minimum. Franco and Francisco are only 2 of millions in Latin America that need solar technology. Can I please ask the table captains to turn off the lights, please? Thank you so much. We can turn the house lights on a little bit. Let's all look at each other. So, You know, all of this work that we do in extending our reach is made possible by investments by Global Partnership and other investors. Global Partnership's trusted in us. They evaluate their partners very well. They spent months of their due diligence, and they thought that we were the real deal. So we thank them, again, for their support. We now together empower people like Franco and Francisca and thousands of others, including a woman by the name of Maritza, who you're going to learn about momentarily. Every dollar that these families save is undoubtedly reinvested into the family, into this kid's education, into their health, and it's improving their lives. They no longer have to live in smoke with very dim candlelight and having to shut down all activity in their house when the sun goes down. I'd like to, again, in conclusion, thank Global Partnerships. Thank you all again for coming and taking time out to listen to us. And when the sun does come out in Seattle, please take your lights out. And it'll still charge without the sun, but you'll get to see how quickly it charges, and it'll last anywhere from 24 to 72 hours. Thank you so much. What was that?
Afectada porque aquí no ha venido la electricidad. Hay bastante necesidad de electricidad. Pues mire, fue una alegría pues ver estas luces que vinieron de pronto, ¿verdad? Y nadie conocía estas lámparas solar. Mire, pues el beneficio que nos ha traído, como le vuelvo a repetir, que verdad ya no gastamos en el querosín, ya no lo tenemos humo en la casa, ya no, el viento no nos apaga el candil, si el agua nos cae, no, con estos paneles podemos ir a cualquier parte con la noche y no que esté lloviendo. Es una bendición. Pueden hacer otros, en el día pueden hacer otros oficios y ya tienen el lugar en la tarde y seguir estudiando. Pongámosle ya a mi hija, pues se ayuda también con la luz de la lámpara, y hacer sus costuras, le pagan y ahí vamos adelante. Tuvieron la gran bondad los muchachos, de la gran confianza. Entonces, mire, sí, yo apoyaba el programa, de verdad, fue una alegría para todos, pues, y así le doy gracias a Dios que el que pueda, pues, comprarla. Hay que salir adelante por cualquier cosa.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Carla Lewis, and I'm really pleased to be a member of the Board of Directors at Global Partnerships. You'll have to excuse me. I started to lose my voice yesterday afternoon, so I sound a little raspy, and I hope you'll just bear with me. Now, I've been a supporter of Global Partnerships for nearly 10 years, but what really solidified it for me was when I traveled to El Salvador about 8 years ago with a group of very inspiring women. This group of travelers were all women donors supporting Global Partnerships. And Ginny Meisenbaugh was one of the women on that trip. I can see many of the rest of our friends that went along in the room here today as well. Witnessing Global Partnerships work firsthand was profoundly moving for all of us, and I was hooked. Ginny's bright, beautiful spirit, her open heart, and her compassion was the centerpiece of the whole experience, and I will always think of Ginny when I think about that journey. She will be missed by the entire Global Partnerships community. Now, on that trip, we met people just like Maritza and Anna that you saw in the videos today. What struck me was their commitment, their optimism, and their determination to improve the lives of their own families and their communities. Now, in this room, we share that determination to make a measurable difference. Global Partnerships has impacted more than 3 million individual lives and counting. Now, over the coming years, our aspiration is to impact more than 30 million lives. That's a 10 times multiplier. It's an ambitious goal, but a doable goal, because we have high confidence in Rick Beckett and the incredible team at Global Partnerships, and we also know we can accomplish this, but we need your generous support. 20 years ago, Global Partnerships was started by a small group of people with a really big vision. But it's been built by this community. We are the catalyst. Our support fuels promising new solutions like the solar lights that you've seen here. And now we'd like to invite you to join us in supporting this important work. Table captains, if you could please pass around the pledge cards and the pens to your guests. And today we have a very special opportunity to leverage the support for Global Partnerships. I'm really pleased to announce that thanks to the generous support of all these donors that you see on the slide on the side there, because of all these donors, all luncheon gifts today of $1,000 or more will be matched dollar for dollar up to $150,000. Thank you to these wonderful supporters. So please take a moment to decide how you'd like to contribute to make a difference to people like Franco, Maritza, Anna, and Abner. Contributions of any size are important and deeply valued and very much appreciated. Please remember your tax-deductible pledge or gift provides opportunities to change a life, to change a family, to change a community. Thank you again for your generosity. Thank you for your support. Thank you for being with us today. We're delighted to be on this journey with all of you. Thank you.
You're quiet because it takes concentration to write those extra zeros. And that's good. Carla, thank you very much. As you finish up today with writing your checks or making your pledges, we thank you all very, very much for your generous support. It is really astounding to have so many new supporters here today, and that gives everybody a lot of hope. We know that you're going to be interested in staying with us in the months and years ahead, and we'll see you soon, I'm sure. Table captains, you're asked please to collect your gift envelopes from your guests, and if you would hand them to the volunteers at the exits on your way out of the ballroom today, no hurry. And please be sure and take home the solar lamp centerpiece, which was generously donated by Waldron. and gratitude for your support. Thank you, everybody, for coming today, for supporting global partnerships, for caring about others. We'll see you again soon at another GP event, an impact journey, and of course, at next year's luncheon. Really appreciate you being here today. Have a great day. Good afternoon.
Samba, samba.